Hi everyone, welcome to the today's lesson on demand. Economics can sometimes feel a bit overwhelming, but remember every expert out there started from square one, just like you. You are here to dig deeper, challenge yourself, and take one step closer to mastering the world of economics. Together, we will explore what drive our choices and what make prices rise and fall. So, let's jump in with curiosity and enthusiasm because today you are not just learning a concept, you are building a foundation that can help you understand the world around you. So let's make it exciting and let's dive into demand. Imagine you are at a concert and suddenly your favorite band announces their tour shirts are half off. What happens? Everyone rushes to the merch stand. But what if the shirt were double that price? Would there still be that same excitement or would people think twice? This behavior is at the heart of something we will call demand in economics. So in this video, we are diving into why we buy, what we buy, and how price tags shape our choices, and what factors influence our demand for goods and services. By the end, you will understand not just why you might buy that tour shirts, but how everyone, from prices to trends, and even the time of a year, can affect what all of us demand. So let's uncover the secrets behind the drive of the demand. Demand and the markets. Before understanding the demand, we need to understand the definitions and the concept of a market. So, a market is essentially any arrangement that allows buyers and sellers to interact, exchange information, and conduct transactions. And this transaction can take place in various forms. These forms could be physical locations like farmer markets or online platforms like e-commerce sites. But what is the meaning by competitive markets? A competitive market is characterized by the presence of many buyers and sellers. In this type of market, no single buyer or seller has the power to influence prices significantly. This structure ensures that prices are determined by the overall supply and demand dynamics rather than individual actions. These markets have four important characteristics. There are many buyers and sellers, there are homogeneous products, there are price trackers, and also there are free entry and exit. So generally, when there is many buyers and sellers, this tells to us the presence of numerous participators exists to ensure that competition remains high. Homogeneous price says to us that the goods offered by different sellers are largely identical, making it easy for consumers to switch between suppliers without any loss in quantity. Price trackers also say to us both buyers and sellers are price takers, and meaning is that they accept that market price as given and cannot influence it through their individual actions. And finally, free entry and exits say to us there are minimal barriers for new firms to enter or exit the markets and promoting competition and innovation. So, in summary, a market is any arrangement that enables buyers and sellers to get informations and do business with each other. And a competitive market is a market that has many buyers and sellers. So no single buyers and sellers, no single buyers and sellers can influence the markets. The money markets, the money price of a goods is the amount of money needed to buy it, and the relative price of a good is the ratio of its money price to the money price of the next best alternative goods is its opportunity cost. So what is the demand exactly? After this short introductions, we want to know it together. What is the demand? Let's kick things off by defining demands. When we talk about the demand, we are referring to a specific situation where you not only want something but also have the means to buy it and have made a clear plan to do so. So in simpler terms, demand is about turning a desire to action. But what are the key components of this desire to action transformation? First, want. Second, affordability. And third, decision to buy. So what is the want? In demand also. So in demand, want is a desire for a good or service. We all have a countless want ranging from everyday items like foods and clothing to luxury goods like cars and vacations. However, not every want translates to demand. Affordability. The second important aspect of demand definition. To have demand, you must be able to afford the item. This means having enough financial resources to make the purchase without straining your budget. And finally, decision to buy. Demand involves making a definite plan to buy. It's not just about wanting something, it's about taking actionable step to acquire it. So, it is important to differentiate between wants and demand. While wants are limitless and can include anything from the latest smartphone to a dream vacation, demand reflects a more focused decision on which wants you choose to satisfy based on your financial situation and priority. Now, let's talk about quantity demanded. This term refers to the specific amount of goods or services that consumers are willing and able to purchase during a particular time period at a given price. For example, if you are looking to how many pizzas people plan to buy on a Friday night at $10, for example, each, that's the quantity demanded for pizza at the price point. So in summary, if you demand something, then you need to first want it, second, you can afford it, and third, you have made a definite plan to buy it. Wants are unlimited desires, so wants are unlimited desires or wishes people have for good and services. Demand reflected decisions about which wants to satisfy. And finally, the quantity demanded for a goods or service is the amount that consumer plan to buy during a particular time periods and at a particular price. So particular price, particular time periods, and people plan to buy it. There are important aspects in quantity of demand. Know that we have a solid understanding of what demand is. Let's explore the key principle in economics known as the law of demand. This law outlines a fundamental relationship between price and quantity demanded. So, what is this law? The law of demand states that, all else being equal, when the price of a good rises, the quantity demanded decreases. Conversely, when the price falls, the quantity demanded increases. In simpler terms, consumers tend to buy less of goods when its prices goes up and more when its price goes down. So, why does a change in price lead to a change in quantity demanded? There are too many reasons for this phenomenon: the substitution effects and the income effect. In the substitution effects, we say that this substitution effect occurs when consumers react to a change in the price of a goods by substituting it with a different product. For example, if price of beef rises significantly, consumers may choose to buy chicken or pork instead because they provide similar benefits at a lower cost. This shift in purchasing behavior illustrates how consumers look for alternatives when faced with higher prices. And second is income effect. In fact, the income effect refers to how changes in price affect consumers' purchasing power. When the price of a goods decreases, consumers feel effectively richer because they can buy more with the same amount of money. For example, if the price of coffee drops, you might decide to buy more coffee or even treat yourself to some pastries because your budget stretches further. Conversely, if prices rise, your purchasing power diminished and leading to buy less. So in summary, the law of demand states that other things remain the same. The higher price of the goods, the smaller in quantity demanded. The higher price of the goods, this is an important role of demand. So the lower price of the goods leads to larger in quantity demanded. So why it takes place? Because of two important reasons: substitution effect and income effect. So generally, the relationship between price as a most basic and important thing to determine quantity demanded, this relationship is inverse relationship. Whatever the price increase, the quantity demanded decrease, and vice versa. Whatever the price decrease, the quantity of demanded are increase. There is an inverse relationship between price and quantity of demanded of a special product. Now that we have covered the law of demands and we have the general informations about the substitution effect and also income effect, we want to delve deeper into two key concepts that explain how price change and influence quantity demanded: the substitution effect and the income effect. In fact, in the substitution effect is all about consumer behavior in response to the change in relative prices. When the relative price or opportunity cost of a good or service increases, consumers start to look for alternative. For example, imagine the price of coffee rises significantly. As a result, many people may choose to switch to tea or other beverage that serve a similar purpose but are now relatively cheaper. This shift leads to a decrease in the quantity demanded for coffee because consumers are substituting it with more affordable options. Essentially, when prices rise, people become more resourceful in seeking substitutes that fit their budgets. Income effects. Next, we have the income effects. That means that we need to focus on how price changes impact consumer purchasing power. When the price of the goods or services increases relatively to consumer income, they find themselves unable to afford all the items they previously purchased. For example, let's say you regularly buy certain brand of sneakers for $100. If the price suddenly jumps to $150, you might reconsider your spending. With limited income, you may choose to buy less expensive shoes or even delay your purchasing altogether. This reduction in purchasing power leads to decrease in the quantity demanded for those sneakers. So again, in summary, when the relative price or opportunity cost of goods or services rises, people seek to substitute for it. So the quantity demanded of the good or service decreases. And when the price of goods or services rises relative to income, people cannot afford all things they previously bought. So the quantity demanded of the good or services decrease. This is a logic behind the inverse relationship between price and demand. Demand curve and demand schedule. Now that we have explored the concepts of demand substitution effect and income effect, let's talk about how we visually represent demand. We want to show what we learned until this moment, in fact. And we want to show it by the demand curve and demand schedule. So, what is the demand schedule? A demand schedule is a table that lists various prices for goods or services, alongside the corresponding quantity demanded at those prices. The schedule provides a clear, organized way to see how demand varies with price. Demand curve. Now let's move on to the demand curve. A demand curve is a graphical representation of the demand schedule. It plots the price of goods on the vertical axis and quantity demanded on the horizontal axis. Typically, a demand curve slopes downward from left to right, and this downward slope visually represents the inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. This means that when price go up, quantity demanded goes down, and vice versa. And ceteris paribus rules in the demand curves assume that all other factors affecting demand remain constant. This is known as a ceteris paribus, and this means that while we look at how price affect quantity demanded, we are holding other influences like consumer preferences, income levels, and other conditions constant. So, as we have in the past parts, you can see a showing of what we explained until this moment. Here we have the demand curve and demand schedule. In the demand schedule, as you can see, in different conditions, we have different quantity demanded for different price. For example, in 50 cent, we have 22 million bars of quantity demanded of energy bars. So in the demand at point B, when we have a price of $1, the quantity demanded is 15. And until the $2.50 that our demand decreases to 5. So as you can see in the table of demand schedule, whatever the price is increased from the top to down, the quantity of demanded is decreased. That shows the inverse relationship. And in the right side, we have presentations of these roles and the demand schedules. In the x-axis, we have the price that is based on dollars. In the y-axis, we have the price, and in x-axis, we have a quantity demanded. And as you can see, we show the tables by showing the different points on the curve. So in the 50 cent, we have about 22 at the point A that we have here. In the $1 price, we have demand at the point B that equal to 15 here, quantity. And at the point C, when the price equal 1.50 cents or demand equal 10. At the point D at price 2, we have the demand amounts 7. And finally, at the point E, we have the amount of demand equal to the 5 when price equal to $2.50. So there is a relationship between price and demand, and this relationship is inverse. And because this inverse relationship, the curve slope is downward. The curve slope is downward, and this downward K slope shows the inverse relationship between price and demand. So as a rise in price, as we discussed with together, and other things remaining the same, brings a decrease in quantity of demanded. As you can see here, in the different price, whatever the price is increase, the quantity of demanded is decrease. And moving along the demand curves, a falling price, other things remaining the same, brings the increase in quantity demanded, and movement down along the demand curve. A demand curve also a willingness and ability to pay curve names, and the smaller, and this willingness and ability to pay presents this role that the smaller the quantity available, the higher is price that someone is willing to pay for another units, and willingness to pay measure marginal benefits. So the willingness and ability to pay said that whatever the smaller quantity available, the higher price that someone is willing to pay for another unit. So a change in demand. Now we want to cover the basic of demand and how it's represented through the demand curve and a schedule. Let's explore what happens when there is a change in demand take place. So in fact, what causes a change in demand? A change in demand occurs when some influence on buying plans other than the price of the good changes. And this means that factors like consumer preferences, income levels, the prices of relative goods, and market trends can all lead to shift in demand. So when demand change, it's affect the quantity of goods that people plan to buy at every price point, and this result in the new demand curve. So we have two conditions: increase in demand. When the demand increases, the entire demand curve shift to right, and condition 2, decrease in demand. Conversely, when demand decreases, the demand curve shift to left. And this means that at every price, at every single price, consumers are willing to purchase less of the goods. So in summary, when some influence on buying plans other than price, so the most basic and important parts was price that changed the quantity demand in the single curves. But when some influence the buying plans other than the price, the goods change, there are a change in demand for goods. The quantity of the goods that people plan to buy changes at every price. So when the price is the same, we have change in demand in these conditions. How in the same price we have experienced change in demand? By new demand curve. And the way that when the demand increases, the demand curve shift to rightward, and when the demand decreases, the demand curve shifts leftward. Now that we understand how demand can change and the implications of this change, let's dive into the six main factors that can influence demand. These factors can cause the demand curve shift either to right, that show increase in demand, or to the left, that show decreases in demand. So first, the price of related goods. The price of related goods can significantly impact demands, and there are two types of related goods to consider: substitutes and complements. So if the price of the substitute goods rises, consumer may switch to the cheaper alternative. For example, if the price of coffee increases, people might buy more tea instead, and increasing the demand for tea. And complements, conversely, the price of a complementary good falls. When the price of the complementary good falls, the demand for related good may increase. For instance, the price of printer is decreases, so the demand for printer ink may rises as more people buy printers. The next factor is expected future prices. And consumers' expectation generally about the future price can also influence current demand. If people anticipate that prices will rise in the future, they may choose to buy more now to avoid paying higher prices later. For example, if a new smartphone is expected to be released at the higher price next month, consumer might rush to purchase the current model before it becomes more expensive. And number 3 item is income. So changes in consumer income directly affect demands, but it's behave differently in two conditions: when we have the normal goods and when we have inferior goods. In normal goods options, that is take place for most of goods, an increase in income leads to an increase in demand. For example, as people earn more money, they are likely to buy more organic foods or luxury items. In the inferior goods, second conditions take place for people buy less as their income rises. An increase in income can lead to decrease in demand in the inferior goods scenario. For example, if someone's income increases, they might stop buying instant noodles and opt for fresh meals instead. Number 4 options is expected future income and credit, and consumers' expectation about the future income and access to credit can also influence their current purchasing decisions. In the way that if people expect their income to rise or anticipate easier access to credit, like loans, they may be more willing to spend now, and increasing current demand. 5 factors that increase the demand in the single price and will lead to change or shift the demand curves to the right or left is populations. And the size and demographic composition of the populations can significantly affect demand. An increasing population generally leads to an increase in demand for goods and services as more consumers enter to the markets. Additionally, changes in demographics such as age distribution or cultural trends can shift demand patterns for specific products. And finally, we have preferences that lead to change in demand curve and shift it to the left or right. And consumer preferences and tastes play a very important roles in determining demand. For example, changes in lifestyle trends, advertising, and social influences can all impact what consumers want to buy. For instance, if there is a growing trend toward health and wellness, the demand for fitness-related products like gym, membership, or health food may increase. So, in summary, we have the 6 main factors that change demand in the same price, and they are very essential for analyzing market behavior. The price of related goods, second, expected future price, third, income, 4, expected future income and credit, number 5 is population, and finally we have preferences. By recognizing how these influences operate, businesses and economies can better predict shift in consumer behavior and adjust their strategies accordingly. So price of related goods. As I explained to you in the past parts, in these subjects, we have 2 scenarios. Scenario first about the substitute goods and the scenario 2 about the complements good. Let's take a closer look on what of these 2 factors. First, the prices of related goods includes understanding how substitutes and complements goods affect demand. That is very important for grasping the market dynamics. So let's start with substitutes goods. So the definitions of substitute goods is the goods that can be used in place of another good. So when the price of substitutes rises, consumers are likely to switch to the cheaper alternatives and leading to increase in demand for the original good. So let's say the price of granola bars, for example, increases. As a result, consumer may choose to buy energy bars instead because they serve a similar purpose, providing a convenient snack options. And this shift consumer preferences means that the demand for energy bars will rise as people seek out substitute for more expensive granola bars. The next scenarios is complement goods. So a complement is a good that is used in conjunction with another goods. When the price of the complementary good falls, it can lead to increase in demand for the related goods. For example, considering energy bars and protein powders. If the price of protein powders increases, consumer may buy more protein powder and in turn also purchase more energy bar to use alongside it as part of their fitness regime. And this relationship means that when the price of the complement falls, the demand for energy bars increase as well. So to summarize how these concepts apply specifically to energy bars, if a price of substitutes like granola bars rises, the demand for energy bar increases because consumers are looking for alternatives. So if the price of substitutes rises, this means that the quantity of original goods rises as well. There's a direct relationships. And if the price of complement like protein powder falls, the demand for energy bars also increases. So if the price of complementary goods rises, in this case, if the price of complementary goods decreases, the demand for original goods also increases. There is an inverse relationship between original goods and complementary goods, price and demand. And vice versa. If the price of complementary goods increases, the demand for original good decreases. So in summary, a substitute is a goods that can be used in the place of another goods and there is a direct relationship with original products. A complementary good is a goods that is used in conjunction with another goods and they have an inverse relationship with original products. And when the price of substitute for an energy bar, for example, rises, or when the price of complementary of energy bars falls, the demand for energy bars increases. So next item is expected future price and income. If the price of a goods is expected to rise in the future, the current demand for the good increases. And the demand curve shifts to rightward. And when income increases, consumers buy more of goods and the demand curve shifts to rightward also. So for the normal goods, the behavior of consumers is different with the inferior goods. As you can see, we have two different scenarios for normal goods and inferior goods in the way that in normal goods scenario is one for which demand increases as income increases. So there is a direct relationship between normal goods, income and demand on a way that whenever for normal goods your income increase, the demand or quantity demanded also increase as well. There is a direct relationship for normal goods, but for inferior goods there is a different conditions. This means that when your income increases for inferior goods, your demand for inferior goods is decreases. So there is an inverse relationship between your income and quantity demanded of inferior goods, and direct relationship between the amount of income and quantity demanded for normal goods. The next item that lead to shift in demand curve is expected future income and populations and preferences. This effect in the way generally when income is expected to increase in the future or when credit is easily to obtain, the demand might be increased now. The next item is that when we have the larger population or population grows, the greater is demand for all goods. Naturally, whatever the population increase amounts, the demand increase as well. And finally, people with the same income have the different demands if they have different preferences. So preferences of the people also affect the demand amount in the same price that lead to shift the demand curve to the right or left. Right, this means that increase in demand at the same price, and left means decrease in demand at same price. So look at the example. Figure 2 shows an increase in demand because an increase in income lead to increase in demand for energy bars and shift the demand curve to the right bar. So look at here at the point A, when the original demand schedules at the price of 50 cents, the amount of demanded for energy bars is 22. But in the new demand schedules, at the same price, 50 cents, the amount of demand increases, 32. What happened? At the same price, we experience the increase in quantity of demanded. And this increase take place, how? Because the demand curve shift to right. And we know that shifting to right of demand curve is indications of increase in demand for other factors instead of price. And here the factors is increases in income. So increases in income have a direct relationship with amount of demand, because increase in income will lead to increase in demand, and increase in demand is shown with shifting the demand curve to the right. And as you can see, in the same prices, 50 cents, $1, $1.50, $2, and so on, we will experience increase in quantity of demanded by shifting the demand curve to the right. So we know that we have two conditions when we have a change in quantity, when we have the changing demand. So figure 3 illustrates the distinction between change in demand and change the quantity of demanded. So as you can see here, this is a price, and increase in the price will lead to decrease in demand in single demand curve. And this is a change in quantity demanded. So change in quantity demanded take place by the most basic factors, and that was price in the single demand curve. So this means that in the single demand curve, we will experience movement along the demand curve. And when the price of the goods change and other goods remain the same, the quantity demanded change and there is a movement along the demand curves. So the movement along the demand curve take place in the inverse conditions. When the price increase, the demand increase. So here, from the original black point, we experience decrease in quantity. We experience decrease in quantity because the price increase. And in the second here, When we shift from the black or original points to the red one, we experience increase in quantity because the price is decrease. And you experience the inverse relationship also here. But the change in demand that take place by shifting to the demand curve, and if the price remain the same, and the other factors will lead to change in demand, other 6 factors that we already explained about that. But one of the other influence on buyer's plans change demand change and demand curve shift to the left or right. If we experience decrease in demand, the demand curve shift to left. This means that in the same price we have a lower amount of demand, and if we have experienced increase in demand, the demand curve shift to right, and this means that we will experience the increase in demand in the same price. Okay, thank you so much for your attention. This is the demand part of our course. Please follow this course through the supply subjects in the next video. Thank you.